Welcome to another Mind, Body, Spirit panel. Incredible guests the world over getting together to share incredible insights, experiences with all of us. I think now, as with all other times on planet Earth, we're in a super interesting and a super complex bunch of situations. So we have three top experts who can help us parse out all the details and tell us why we should keep our chin up and stay the course as humanity goes. Our first guest, who has the wire showing green shirt in South Korea, mindfulness, wellness techniques, a former military engineer out of the UK, but again, he's in South Korea right now. We have Ian Matthews, very Zen. We'll call him a Zen teacher if he doesn't mind that. Uh, the other gentleman with the debonair hair is in Wales right now. It's Iwan Brioc, a Welsh theater director, mindfulness, non-duality teacher. Incredible. Both those gentlemen have been on a bunch, and Iwan has been on a bunch of mind, body, spirit panels. He even shared a near-death experience. I want to say overseas, Jerusalem, if I can remember it correctly. But people do need to go check those out. And he's super well-spoken, has his own show. I believe it's Five Simple Questions, but another one as well. Also, we have Jude Currivan, cosmologist, educator, global speaker on the Galileo Commission. I'm going to say prolific author, but it's the cosmic hologram, story of Gaia, the universe is conscious, possibly the wave, and I still think there's more in the pipeline. And we're going to hear from all three of them in just a second. I'll start us off with a good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's 7 a.m. in Texas. It's probably 9 o'clock in South Korea. It's about 1 o'clock in the UK. Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be together.
It's lovely. Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Great, great to see everyone.
Let's start off with a very happy elephant in the room, but not an easy topic, a lot of complexity. We have a lot of conflict going on. I think it's been consistent for over 100 years in one part of the world or another, but it seems more pronounced now than ever before. What would your message be for audience members, for mankind? Why is this complexity maybe helping us evolve more? And if I could start with Jude, how do you view the world situation currently, and why should we have our chin up and stay the course?
Well, first of all, believe my perspective is that over the last period of time, and ever more in the last century, we've actually been on a path of separation, progressive separation. Oddly enough, as the science has started to move us more that we're interconnected and interdependent through cosmic and quantum understandings, nonetheless, our societies have still been grounded on a 19th century mechanistic worldview. And that mechanistic worldview is also materialist, and it talks of the world as being just made up of separate objects. So it seems to me that that underpinned the Industrial Revolution, so as Ian knows, and all the industrial military complex that have come from that. So in that sense, I would say we literally suffer from a dis-ease of separation. And yet it's incorrect. We're seeing the world through a lens of separation. And what leading edge science is now doing is turning that on its head and saying, no, no, no. Instead, it's converging with universal wisdom teachings, indigenous traditions, to actually reveal that unity is our existential reality. But the conflicts we have are like the sort of symptoms, the continuing behavioral symptoms of that disease. And it seems to me that as a healer, healers will know that you cannot heal a disease by just dealing with the symptoms. If you pat some down, others will emerge in different ways. So as one series of conflicts has been moderated or ended, others have jumped up because the disease has not been addressed. So that's where I think we are. But the good news is, why we're all here together, I suspect, is that indeed, we're finding now that evidence at all scales of existence and many fields of research is turning that paradigm on its head. It's showing us what indigenous universal wisdom teachings have shared with us for millennia, that we are inseparable from each other. We are widely differentiated, each unique, and yet we are inseparable. When we see the world through that lens, I would suggest that instead of framing where we are as a meta crisis, we can begin to come together and see it as a potential metamorphosis.
Iwan.
I couldn't agree more, Jude. You used the phrase elephant in the room, and what came to my mind is Richard Lang, stealing from Richard Lang, who's a headless way teacher, talks about, yeah, we all know about the elephant in the room, but what about the tiger in the room? And that tiger is this mystery, this really deep sense of that, what Jude was talking about, our true nature. And I was leading a practice this morning, and the sentence came up is that this world of appearances is a manifestation of our resistance to the insight of our true nature. And I think as the world gets more complex, to the point where we cannot, no psyche can contain that complexity, we have to outsource it to the world. And so exactly that this is not, there's a great uncovering happening, I think. And AI is helping actually with that, because it's showing who we really are when AI can do everything our thoughts can do. Yeah. So I'm not trying to give false hope. Here we are, this military aircraft above me right now. But,
we can barely hear it. And Ian in Seoul, no pun intended, share your viewpoint on this.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and I concur completely with both Iwan and Jude. Our true nature. My opinion on that is we're still stuck, unfortunately, in age-old symbolic language and metaphor and analogy. I really think we need to not get rid of it, because that's never going to happen in, especially in the Eastern traditions and spiritual traditions. But we have to take responsibility ourselves. It starts right here. And I believe it starts with the next breath, to start turning inside, to try and tap into our true nature, which is always there. We actually don't really have to tap into it, but you've got to say something, right? Otherwise, you can't teach anything, as everyone here knows. We must turn inside, and the breath is our non-stop anchor. It's a gift, of course. It's a divine gift that we have. But it turns out in the work that I'm doing, and I know everyone here understands mindfulness, and I'm using mindfulness, and I used it a lot where it was focused on dampening down the voices in our head, and the voices include our worldview on things and our opinions and our prejudices and everything else. Can we just maybe have 60 seconds without that? Can we put that to the side? But I'm more and more interested as well now on how we can self-regulate using the nervous system. We have this thing called a vagus nerve, and turns out the vagus nerve can modulate well-being and lead to coherence between our breath and the heart and the brain, which can help us tap into our true nature on a frequency level, basically. So we can get there. It's a case, though, of, again, we need to simplify things, and in my opinion, not have too much about, I love Advaita, I love non-duality, I love Muji, Sadhguru, and Osho, all these people. But I think people have difficulty understanding the symbolic language behind it. Can we just keep it very basic and say, okay, just before you start a little practice here to try and connect to your true nature, which is what we're discussing here, because when you connect to your true nature, you might find our true nature is compassion. You might find it is joy. You might find also there is the other side of things as well, which is the challenges in the world. But there is a ground underneath all that, and Jude knows more about that than anyone, that quantum ground, which is that ground which everything in existence comes out of. If we can just stop the noise, if we can breathe, if we can tune up from the inside out, the signal will boom out because we are the signal. That's what I'm trying to say. Stop the noise. Let the signal boom out. Become coherent within ourselves, each and every one of us. And we can practice that 60 seconds of breathing technique, which is what I teach now. Very short techniques, not the long stuff and sitting in awkward postures. And again, they're okay. Keep them, especially the traditions that love them and stuff. But can we do it where we say, well, before you have a meeting, can you do 60 seconds of, a physiological sigh, where you breathe in through the nose and then a long exhale? That tunes up your vagus nerve, and you go into from stress and fear to safety. And you find that the world actually isn't always terrifying, because in reality, you're just sat here in the moment, and your true nature will balance and harmonize you within 60 seconds. I hope I haven't gone on too long there, but the responsibility is ours. Can we keep the message simple? We can use tools to connect to our true nature, is my belief, and at least quieten this thing down to allow us to think again.
I'm going to use this moment before I ask the next question to just light a little sage and allow our guests in Korea, the UK, to catch a little sage through the screen. They've done this before. I think we've done it just before the show as well. But I'm going to ask the next question, which is disclosure through government or military or whoever sources is rumored to be happening this summer for real. There's a lot of false starts over the decades. And we have a movie coming out that may be fear generating, Spielberg, with, I think it's called Disclosure. We just had a congressman out of Tennessee in America literally tweet in the last 24 hours, the latest briefing that he's seen behind closed doors. He said it will set the world on fire in terms of the depth, complexity, the variety of the details. And another congresswoman from the Carolinas said, "Here, here, I saw the same stuff. I agree. It'll set the world on fire." So I want to leave you with that question as I blow you a little sage, something simple. Catch sage, catch flowers, catch ocean, even if you're not near an ocean. What will you allow for? And that's really the theme of today. What will you allow for? Mind or more heart or more something? Openness. And with that, let's talk about openness more. Iwan, how would you like to handle disclosure? Are we alone in the universe? Have you had an experience? You don't have to get into the details, but how would you like to handle this?
I'm not an expert or knowledgeable. I used to be obsessed with UFOs when I was a teenager. And I do remember that I had this lovely Greek neighbor when I was very young. I remember looking up at the sky and seeing the cigar-shaped UFO coming in and across the sky and just stopping and then just disappearing, and feeling, what the hell was that? And I must have been about 7. All right, and she was stunned as well. I have no idea. I think there's a lot of distraction going on at the moment in world affairs. I hope it doesn't set the world on fire, literally. I've nothing wise to say about it, other than consciousness travels faster than light. So they've always been here in the form of consciousness, not just over space, but in time as well. So time was invented to hide the fact that everything's happening all in this moment.
Brilliant. Jude.
I thought that was beautiful, and I disagree with you. Only insofar that, as a cosmologist, we wouldn't be having this conversation if the time of our universe, I'm talking about universal time here, didn't begin something like 13.8 billion years ago. So time is intrinsic to the space-time of the universe we are part of. And so to say that time is all at the same is not in the evidence, it's not in the laws of physics, it's not in the way we are. And yet, as you say, consciousness in a way transcends space-time. It can transcend space-time. But all that I understand of UFOs, and having experienced them since I was 4 or 5 years old, is that they describe to me that they space hop. They space hop. So in that sense, they can transcend the limits within space-time, but they don't violate the causality of universal time, if that makes sense. And for me, I feel that disclosure, whilst important, some folks think it's the most important thing that's ever happened to humanity. I actually don't think it is. I think remembering that we are inseparable members, microcosmic co-creators of a unitive and living universe is more important, far more important. And that may be the message that disclosure actually brings. And in which case I shall be at the front of the queue going, hurrah, and thank you. The other thing I'd suggest is that as exobiologist, we know that there are more planets in our galaxy than stars. And we know many of them, not a minority for sure, but many of them are capable of harboring the evolution of biological life. We also know that the bases, the founding building blocks of our biology is also the same founding building blocks of biology throughout the whole of our planetary home. But more than that, it developed before our planetary home was even born. We look out into space and we look out at interstellar molecular clouds, and all of them have water ice. They have the building blocks of amino acids and lipids and sugars. And we now know from material gathered from a 4.6 billion year old asteroid that they also embody the nucleobases, all 5 nucleobases of DNA and RNA. I'm not a betting woman, but if I were, I'd bet the house on any entity that or extraterrestrial being that we encounter, and there are multidimensional ones in my experience, but as a physicalized being, that they would likely have the same DNA that we have, because it also happens to be by far the best at doing the job it does. And it was right first time, and it was right first time even before our planet was born. So there's something here that I think is incredibly important, but I think the deeper question is, who are we? And I think that revelation that we are microcosmic co-creators of a living, and I would say loving, universe is more foundational.
Can I ask a question, Jude? Can I interject?
Please.
It's something I read about or watched recently, is that yes, there's different DNA, there's life forms possible across the planet, but there's a kind of, although we're 98% or 99% the same DNA as an ape, some DNA scientists believe that there's a tweak in our DNA that allowed us to develop language that doesn't seem to have evolved naturally. It looks engineered. I don't know if there's any credence
two things.
to that.
Yeah, and there's 2 things on that. First of all, our basic DNA is the same as the DNA of every other biological organism on Gaia. And it's exactly the same, made up from the same nucleobases as we find out in the interstellar clouds, okay? So the origins of us and the origins of all biological organisms have the same double helix structure. It's the way in which its chromosome, or its if you like, its genetic code is expressed, okay, in terms of its genes. So for example, a grain of rice, I think, has more genes than we do. I think an onion too has more. So an onion has basically more genes than Einstein, okay, and all of us. So it's not the genes, it's the way they're expressed and the complexity in which they're expressed. And there does look to be a pinch point back in our journey to this point, where there seems to have been something that it was not a natural way of development. And I'm very open to that. I think that, if we continue to follow the evidence wherever it leads, we'll find what we need to find. But I would also say that the story of genetics and the story of heritage has also been badly misunderstood or misinterpreted. Our genetic evolution or biological evolution, doesn't progress by random mutations. It actually is much more purposeful, much more informationally guided than that. And there's lots of evidence for that we could go into, and possibly in another panel we will. But I do feel that, more and more what is being revealed is a universe that meaningfully exists and purposefully evolves from simplicity to complexity and individuated self-awareness. And I love what Ian was saying about the breath, because I talk about the big breath rather than, the chaotic start in a bang, more as the first moment of an ongoing big breath. And our breath is the big breath of our universe breathing through our little breaths in each moment. So I love what Ian was saying about really going back to that foundational way in which our universe, its vastness, is also intimate within us.
Ian.
Yeah, well said, both. And big breath, one breath, big mind, one mind. Max Planck said that, everything really is a construct of one mind, right? And I just wish we were taught the truth at school. I just wish every nation was taught the truth at school, not the stuff which is the utility of how useful we can become once we graduate or whatever. It's not hard, and it's quite obvious stuff, I think. And it's just such a shame. I mean, I remember when I was really getting into it, because I was having that kind of crisis of, as you said, Jude, who am I? I was obsessed with who am I? I thought nothing else matters, especially after I'd left the army and I was a number, and that confused the heck out of me physically and whatever before I even realized what it was doing to me. So I got out and I thought, what am I going to do? And I just sat in a field somewhere in Fairford in Gloucester. And luckily, there was a Buddhist place just around the corner. And I just thought, I got to go here. And I quickly realized that Buddhism is mind training. That's essentially what it is. And I learned very quickly that things aren't what I think they are. And I need to unwrap, you mentioned the onions. I need to get rid of loads of layers here. I went to my mum's, bless her, my Scottish mum, after about 6 months as a lay person kind of thing, doing all the dishes in between the free lessons. And she said, I was sat next to her on a couch, and she said, "What are you thinking, son? You look very quiet." I said, "I'm thinking, Mum, I'm the universe that's actually taking a snapshot of itself through my nervous system." And I think her look was like, "Oh my God, he's doing drugs or something. What on earth is he talking about?" But the trouble is, what I'm saying isn't that wrong, really, And I would go to a Dublin pub and they'd say, "Where are you from?" And I would go, "I'm from the stars." And you can imagine the answers I got from the Dubliners, which I can't say here. There's, there could be kids watching. But it's the truth, isn't it?
I would actually say I think we're more than stardust. I think we're star seeds. When you see the complexity of the whole journey of evolution over, billions of years, you see that through generations of stars, when they died, they seeded the interstellar medium with all the nutrients, and then these wonderful molecular clouds were like birthing places from the planetary systems that enable the next level of a story to unfold and to flow. So rather than even just stardust, I think we are star seeds, and all our relations, and then going back to disclosure, Michael, what you were saying, it seems to me that all of our relations and we are members of the vast communities of life, of a living universe. And it's just the most extraordinary, beautiful story. And so, I did a film a while ago called A Radical Guide to Reality for young people to share this story. And what we found with the focus groups is the young people, before seeing the film, were saying, "I don't know if I've got meaning or purpose." Every single young person afterwards saying, "I know I belong. I know I belong. I know I have meaning and purpose. I know I belong." And it's that, I think, is what you're referring to, that is so important, that to re-heart ourselves that we do belong to this vast, wonderful world.
It's impossible if we're taught properly not to realize that. that we are it, you know. And I remember Richard Branson spent all his billions and whatever going up to space, and his latest one that kind of goes like that and then shoots up, and they were filming him while he was you know, looking outside the window and whatever, and I could see that there's something wrong. And afterwards, and it wasn't widely reported, but a reporter asked him, you know, wow, what was it like? He said, I was terribly disappointed because I thought I'd feel something amazing because I was in space, but I didn't. And the first thing I could think of was because you're already in space, Richard, when you're walking on planet Earth. You know, you are space. And this is our problem, isn't it? We're looking out there and we're already in it. But we're
This
not
is so
taught anything
important.
like this.
No, and this is so important because I keep promising to write an article called Babies Can't Be Born on Mars. And there's a real science behind that, because over these billions of years that we've come to this planetary home, we've developed our morphologies, our bodies, through 4 billion years of continuing evolutionary complexity. And the point is we need gravity to guide us from initial stem cells through the gestation of an embryo into a baby. And we need our gravity, because that's what all the information that's held within our DNA is guiding us through, and all the genetic expressions of that through 9 months of gestation is guiding us to. If we're gestating on Mars, which has got a small amount, it's about 67% of our gravity, or even more so on the moon, we're not going to be able to birth healthy babies. And that what they try to actually differentiate stem cells in the International Space Station, and they wouldn't, because they couldn't take the information in the DNA and actually within the sort of location, you know, the GPS that is within a planetary gravitational field. They just couldn't create the differentiation that could go on to form a baby. So all of this idea of Elon Musk and communities on Mars, I think it's an incredibly unhelpful and potentially dangerous way forward. We are here. This is our Garden of Eden. This is our Garden of Eden, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And we have game show bells going off. It's going to be lightning round now. 3 sentences max as we start to round off the panel.
Okay.
It'll be a little quicker today than usual. We have 3 separate quotes. Unfortunately, you won't be able to review all 3 and choose which one you want to have. I will have you, though, step up and volunteer to handle this quote. 3 sentences, your reaction. Gary Zukav, Seed of the Soul. Here's his quote, and I'd love to get a reaction from one of you. First one to put their hand up is going to tackle it. You change the way that you shape the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. If 5 seconds goes by, I'm just picking someone. Who wants to take that on? You change the way that you shape the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. Iwan.
I'll match that with another metaphor, which is confusing the water with the hose it's going through. Of course, consciousness is shaped by this body here and all my conditioning, but it isn't consciousness. Well, it is, but it's just a tiny fragment of it.
Next one, Winnie the Pooh. And now we've got 2 contestants left. Some people talk to animals. Not many listen, though. That's the problem. But I'll add also, that's the opportunity for growth for all of us. Jude, Ian, who wants that one?
I'll be happy to run with it. Unless, Ian, would you like that, or?
You go ahead, Jude, please.
Okay. Well, I listen to animals all my life, and I've learned so much from them, and I'm still a student. But not just animals, all the more than human intelligences that are part of our world, all the multidimensionalities that are part of this world. And it's one of the greatest privileges of my earth walk that I've had the opportunity, as we all do. But I guess because I never shared that I was doing that from a very early age, I never got shut down from experiencing that from a very early age. And it's my lived experience every day. Animals and trees and divas and elemental beings and ancestors and archetypal intelligences. And it seems to me that when we do wake up to remember who we really are, this understanding can help guide us into who we can evolve to become.
Beautiful. Ian, here's your quote, Star Wars quote. Obi-Wan Kenobi is talking with Luke, probably for the first time in that 1977 film. Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend on our own point of view.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this at the very start of this, and I think it was Jude that raised it. If only we could just for, just 60 seconds to begin with in the day, put our views to one side and see what happens. The views are, it's the veil, isn't it? And if we could just put them to the side, and it's possible to do that. It is totally possible to do that with some just very simple instruction with a good teacher. And then sit still and see what happens when you're not attached to those views. And because what you're doing is you're sitting in your true nature, which again, with the more than human animals like our beloved cat, she sits very happily without views and viewpoints, although she's got a mini ego, of course, thank goodness. And how much fun is that? But she does perfectly well without views, and she's a very healthy little thing without any world views and constant worries and constant opinions and judgments and things like that. So views are useful, but they're just a part of us. That's all. We're much, much deeper and bigger than that without the views.
Okay, and each of you get a chance to listen. I'm going to put up one angelic figure, ball of light, Joy. She's cosmic. She's a high, peppy voice. You don't have to share anything out loud. You can just say, got it. At least get a hug. Feel some energy. You can put a palm up and feel her that way if you want, like a fireplace, but feel sparkle or joy. Try too hard, you'll feel it on the toes. People at home can do this. Like, share, comment. What have you related to so far in this panel discussion? But if you do want to hear from her a message to relate to the rest of us for mankind, that joy is within or something like that. Ian, what are you getting from Joy right now? Are you feeling her? Get a hug, and anyone can punt and just say, got it, if they felt a little bit, but don't want to share.
Just the sense of the unity, but also at the same time, we can choose to be right here, right now with this amazing group of people. Iwan, Jude, thank you, Michael. I'm conscious of both unity and our fantastic individuality at the same time. It's been amazing.
And Iwan, what are you getting? What are you feeling or smelling even?
Well, it's a lot of sun. Nice sun. Another Star Wars quote is Qui-Gon Jinn talking to the young Darth Vader. And it's very poignant because this character's going to become Darth Vader. And he says, what you focus on will become your reality. And I love what's been brought to this meeting, the focus on just now, the breath, and also that just incredible potential Jude is talking about, which is so exciting. We live in really exciting times, don't we? So I'm so grateful for this meeting. And
thank you very much, Iwan. And Jude, what are you getting?
Well, first of all, I am too, Iwan. And what you just said, I feel when I see Joy that I always also see love and gratitude in a dance with Joy. This wonderful sort of living wave of love, joy, and gratitude. And I have all of those for all of you being together today. So thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you. And a final closing statement from each of you, if it could be 10 words or less, like a little mantra, a reminder for each of us that if we said it enough daily, we might actually get to home, to our hearts, and openness itself. Each of you gets to share something that I hope is original, spontaneous, straight out of the ether or interdimensionality itself. So punt, have the universe step in, get a big hug. You don't need a photo for this. But I'm going to ask each of you to, again, relay some sort of a mantra or short saying. It can be in another language if you wish. Ian, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm definitely not feeling original. I'm going to go for Ram Dass. It's okay to be here now.
Okay. And Iwan.
You only have to pay attention to one breath. This one.
And Jude.
I don't know, quoting Pooh, but I'm standing with Pooh. Love honey. Love the honey of life.
I love that. I'll do a Winnie the Pooh quote to close out, and then thank you all. And that was Piglet asked Winnie the Pooh a question. How do you spell love? And Winnie the Pooh said, you don't spell it, you feel it. And with that, I certainly felt all three of you today. Thank you for sharing yourselves with all of us. And thank you for coming on this panel.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you all so, so much. Ivan,
Thanks,
Ian,
everyone.
thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye. Thanks, Michael.